Hey guys, I'm Spec and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet because it's going to turn into a little bit of a lengthy video otherwise. But for everyone who's nagged me pretty much day in, day out for the past 5-6 years, I guess, for my guitar rig settings, this one is for you. I hope you enjoyed. Cheers guys, see you soon. So, first thing definitely worth mentioning is going to be Logic Pro X. Logic being the recording software, Guitar Rig being the amp simulation software running within Logic, just to clear up a couple of kind of questions and confusion I've had in regard to that in the past. In regard to tech spec, I'm using a MacBook from 2015 and the audio interface is a USB audio interface. It's a Focusrite 2i2. Today running directly out of the Strat into the Focusrite. No pedals in between, no anything. Just keeping it fairly simple today to demonstrate how I use Guitar Rig and not how I use pedals in front of it. Though, that said, I've never had any problems using any pedals in front of it. Just plug them out of your guitar, into the pedal, into the audio interface, and you're away. Guitar Rig tends to react to pedals very nicely. So let's open up Guitar Rig. What I've done here in a nutshell is open up anything that I would have used at Guitar Rig at any point. So there's a couple of kind of more bizarre effects here like the auto filter and the tape echo, but obviously they've had their place in specific tracks that I've had questions about, so I thought I would try and explain, anything that I've used in Guitar Rig at any point, as I said. So the first thing within Guitar Rig worth mentioning is going to be the amp, given it is an amp simulation software. It is the Tweedman, and 99% of the time I use this exact amp model. There's a couple of amp models within it, to be honest. A couple of different Marshalls, AC30, an Orange, a couple of higher gain kind of dual rectifiers, all that kind of stuff. But I'd be lying if I said I never really looked beyond the Tweedman, to be honest. It's great. It sounds very much like a Fender Bassman to my ears, and as much as it sounds great clean, like this, it does a very cool thing where if you push the volumes, you really do start to get in the kind of pushed, Fender Bassman territory. And for anyone familiar with my Miss You video I did a few years ago, that is pretty much that sound. So to get that back to roughly where it was, to be honest, they're interchangeable. They stay roughly around that kind of position, I guess, 99% of the time, with the bright and the normal fairly low, so we don't get any kind of natural breakup. As I said, I tend to use pedals. A big favourite of mine for Guitar Rig being the VS Audio Royal Flush. But, as I said, I've never really had any problems running running pedals into Guitar Rig. It's where I do all of my demos and all of my Friday Fretworks. Moving on to, I guess, what we could deem a quote-unquote secret for Guitar Rig, and it is the Tube Screamer. The only secret really being, A, its positioning, being between the head and the cab, but also the fact that I'm running the clean blend, which is this little kind of sub-menu here, running that full, the drive at minimum, and the volume and tone, the taste, primarily because it just acts as a very nice fattener. So for my clean tone, 99% of the time, again, that's on. And if we kind of toggle it back and forth, you'll see what I mean. Just fattens things up very nicely. Tube Screamer not really being a pedal that you would associate with, that kind of clean boost thing, I guess. But obviously this clean blend here really adds an extra level of versatility. So again, for my clean tone, that is on pretty much all of the time. Let's minimize this and move down to the match cabinet. Not much to write home about here, really. It's a cabinet. What more do you expect? But the one thing definitely worth mentioning is this air control, which, you don't really kind of see talked about much in Guitar Rig kind of forums, any of that kind of stuff, but does a fantastic job of emulating, I guess, dialing in a little bit of room sound into a guitar sound. So if we toggle that back and forth to the left and right, much more direct, much more indicative, I guess, of a microphone just being stuck in front of the speaker cone. Further over to the right it goes, the more room sound you dial in, and the wider it gets. That's a great one, especially for guitar in isolation. Within a mix, I tend to kind of play around with that a little bit, and it really helps guitars sit within a mix very nicely, maybe towards the drier side. But for guitars in isolation, like you hear a lot on Friday Fretworks, it's pretty much set just the other side of kind of center, I guess, towards the air side of things. Cool, moving on to, as I said, the auto filter. Not an effect which gets a hell of a lot of use, but for Childish Gambino Redbone, the cover of that I did, it was a very specific effect I used on that. Sounds a little bit like this. Sorry, inadvertently moving that around then with my fat fingers. Definitely worth remembering about the auto filter is that different pickups will fire it in a different way. Ultimately, it's fired by the amount of signal that's going into it. So the P90s in the Revstar for the Childish Gambino video would sound very different, these single coils in this Strat. Let's get rid of that auto filter for the time being. On to Spring Reverb, which is another one I get a lot of questions about. No tricks really here. It's just a fantastically good sounding Spring Reverb that I would have in an amp any day of the week if I could. It's relatively similar to the reverb in my clean machine, my Fuchs clean machine, and relatively similar to the one in the Victory V40. But there's just, I guess because it's digital maybe, there's just a HD, high definition kind of thing going on, which is very nice. And again, 99% of the time it's set where you see it now. If you turn that on and off, you can hear a big difference. Beautiful natural decay on it. As I said, nothing really to kind of write home about in terms of tricks or anything there. It's just a fantastic reverb. And last but definitely not least, again, it's quite a specific effect to a couple of tracks that I've done. It is the tape echo. I'm guessing, looking at the colour scheme, it's going to be an emulation of that Roland Space Echo, is it maybe? The name eludes me at the moment. But fairly straightforward, does a very nice tape echo. Obviously in stereo as well, which is very cool, and that has had a lot of use on a couple of the more kind of ambient things I've done in the past. I think maybe the cover of Desperado. Again, no secrets as such there. You've got a couple of extra options underneath to control the amount of headroom and the amount of warble, the amount of tape warble, dropouts, all that kind of stuff, and, you know, etc, etc. Ignore the text coming through. Yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest, in regard to guitar rig. The only thing worth mentioning is going to be the pedal board over here, which currently is using a squash compressor. Compressor. These are the effects that you get within Logic. Obviously you've got a couple of different kind of things going on down there, but the only one that I ever really kind of dabbled around with is the squash compressor, which again, if we turn that on and off, subtle, but definitely kind of does its thing, which is what you want from a compressor, really. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. As I said, it's not something that I've kind of been hiding, really. There's a couple of little things, I guess, which are just things I stumbled across, like the placement of the tube screamer in between the head and the cab. And obviously the spring reverb just sounds great anyway. But aside from that, there's not really any kind of secrets, to be honest. I'm not affiliated with Guitar Rig or Native Instruments in any way, shape or form. I've reached out to them a couple of times and been ignored. So, you know, I've zero benefit to gain from, you know, telling you how great this bit of software is. But, you know, it kind of speaks for itself, really. It's just a very natural, very nice amp simulation software that, you know, it's the dead of night here now, and I've got a set of headphones on. And if you crank up the audio interface, you know, max the level, it very much sounds like you're in a great control room listening to a fantastic amp that's mic'd with a couple of grand's worth of condenser microphones in the next room. It's just very natural. Infinitely useful bit of software. So there we go. I hope that was helpful. I hope you got something from it. I've been Chris Buck. This is Friday Fretworks, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers, guys. Take care.